So, you know, why fight about public education? Well, you know, these are the kind of things that, and we know, look, for all of us in the Hazleton area, all three of my sons graduated from the high school, all three of them. And they have a hard battle there to maintain excellence, and they've got to start fighting real hard inside the public school system to maintain the excellence that this community expects for our children. They can't do it without resources, but we do have to hold them to a high standard. There are, I don't see any public school board members here tonight, but I've told the superintendent and the business manager, do not take that red diamond, that federal stimulus money, and hire more teachers or create new recurring costs that grow and grow over the years. Use it for one-time fixes, but don't drive up school property taxes by creating recurring spending. We didn't do that in this budget year for the state. We tried to maintain the integrity of our programs, solidify the base, protect the vulnerable citizens, children, basic health and education services, and get through this difficult moment. As it relates to those basic services for kids that I talked about, while we were arguing about this in Harrisburg, some of my dearest friends at Head Start in Hazle got laid off. Now those people are back to work now that the state money is rolling again, but the cuts would have been done. The budget period to the community before I left was, my goal as your representative was to make sure that this budget protected children, protected public education, protected vulnerable senior citizens, veterans, and make sure school property taxes won't increase. That will not happen. Those programs are protected in here. Now some programs suffered, and you heard about it. And you'll continue to hear about certain programs. I feel very, very bad for our drug and alcohol programs in Pennsylvania. And I've talked to Mike Donahue, who was at my town meeting in Cunningham Borough about it, and Marianne Petrillo, who manages our county's programs for the county. And there are areas that got deeper cuts than others. But this is a difficult moment, and we had to make difficult choices. On the revenue side, how did we make up the additional revenue to pay for the other $1.9 million that we put into this budget? Well, let me tell you how we did it. We suspended what's called the capital stock and franchise tax. We were actually, the capital stock and franchise tax was out there and it was going down. We were sending it downward and downward. We froze it at a rate of 2.89. We allowed for tax amnesty for those who didn't pay their state taxes to see if we can collect any of that money. In other states, they've collected some. They expect that we can collect about $60 million from that. We increased cigarette taxes by 25%, 25 cents. We focused on making sure that we used what's a complicated equation of the budget period to the community before I left was, my goal as your representative was to make sure that this budget protected children, protected public education, protected vulnerable senior citizens, veterans, and make sure school property taxes won't increase. That will not happen. Those programs are protected in here. Now some programs suffered, and you heard about it. And you'll continue to hear about certain programs. I feel very, very bad for our drug and alcohol programs in Pennsylvania. And I've talked to Mike Donahue, who was at my town meeting in Cunningham Borough about it, and Marianne Petrillo, who manages our county's programs for the county. And there are areas that got deeper cuts than others. But this is a difficult moment, and we had to make difficult choices. On the revenue side, how did we make up the additional revenue to pay for the other $1.9 million that we put into this budget? Well, let me tell you how we did it. We suspended what's called the capital stock and franchise tax. We were actually, the capital stock and franchise tax was out there and it was going down. We were sending it downward and downward. We froze it at a rate of 2.89. We allowed for tax amnesty for those who didn't pay their state taxes to see if we can collect any of that money. In other states, they've collected some. They expect that we can collect about $60 million from that. We increased cigarette taxes by 25%, 25 cents. We focused on making sure that we used what's a complicated equation with the gross receipts tax, which will apply across a lot of different types of taxes. And that will be matched from Washington with federal money from DC to make sure that we have enough money to fund long-term care. So we kind of plugged this revenue up without any applying any broad-based taxes to people's paychecks, because we know how difficult this is at the moment. And by making sure that we didn't see shifts in taxes locally in other areas, either shifts to our counties or shift to local school taxes. So I think for the moment, what we did was we buoyed the state budget up, but it wasn't easy. And it's kind of indefensible. I want to say I'm sorry to everybody that it took this long. But you can see in the intractable issues, they were kind of behind these budget lines. I know that you heard me say it, and you've heard me say it all along in my 13 years of serving you. That the state budget isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's people who get impacted behind the lines in the state budget. It's real people in each of these lines that get impacted. Now, there's lots of people who say, look, cut all state government, get out of the way. Let's not have enough plow trucks on the highways so that when the storms come on Valentine's Day, we got people packed out there. And that's what happened out there. They cut too many plow trucks off the highways in PennDOT, and we didn't have enough capacity to plow our roads. You can look at these kind of anomalies and say, well, that doesn't make sense. Leaving a funding cliff for public education doesn't make sense. It's rational. Leaving money in for the Megan's Law tracking system for the state police, and frankly, keeping our assets open in the community, Eckley Miners Village, which is going to maintain its opening. And they have to capitate their times a bit for the public, but it's going to maintain, it's going to stay open. Right? Troop N, our own state police barracks. A lot of people don't know this, but in an early discussion in the budget, there was acknowledgement they might close our state police barracks at Troop N. I immediately opposed that before it ever got anybody's spreadsheet. I called the governor's office and told them, point blank, there is no way that people from Swiftwater in Monroe County, or Wyoming Borough in northern Luzerne County, or the Harrisburg shop south of this mountain can get up the mountain to get people out of here in an emergency. Troop N and our state police serve this township. They serve I-80 and 81, one of the busiest corridors. And if you look at the kind of accidents we've had in Whitehaven in the fog on I-80, multiple car accidents, this state police barracks is essential. There's no way in and out of here. When it snows, we all know, like Freeland last week, you can get 5 inches on an October day, right? So, these are the kind of things that you hire me to look at, and they're not easy. They're not easy. And this has not been a personally easy moment. I felt at times embarrassed. I felt at moments separated from you. I spent way too much time trying to manage this. And I want to say to you this, I didn't give up on the things that I told you I'd fight for. As hard as it was, and there were moments that I didn't think it was going to work out for the kids and the children and the seniors. I thought that it was going to go the other way. But we fought for it, and frankly, no matter what party you're on, it's always good to meet in the middle. It's always good to try and find a compromise during difficult times. I've always been able to do that here. It's become a lot harder in Harrisburg.